Hello everyone, it's me Lucero again. So today I am going to read the story Bringing Back the Buffalo. Let's listen first. Here we go.
Bringing Back the Buffalo. Written by Marcy Rendon. Illustrated by Alexander Zolatich. Focus question. How will raising a herd of buffalo affect Tony and his tribe? Hurry and get dressed, Tony's mom said from his bedroom doorway. Uncle Roger and Annie are waiting for you. Tony rolled out of bed. He pulled on his clothes and shoved his feet into his tennis shoes with a yawn. Are you excited to see the buffalo? His mom asked. Tony shrugged. Sure, he said. Tony didn't really see what was so exciting about the reservation getting a buffalo herd. His cousin Annie was way more excited about it than he was. Annie and Uncle Roger were waiting outside in Uncle Roger's pickup truck. Tony hopped in. As they rode along, Uncle Roger told Tony and Annie about the buffalo they were going to see. The Red Lake Tribal Council voted to raise a buffalo herd, he said. Some of the meat will be shared among the tribe. Some of it will be sold so the tribe can buy more buffalo. It's part of our tribe's larger effort to create food sovereignty for us. What does that mean? Asked Tony. It means we'll grow vegetables and raise animals locally, said Annie. That would be pretty cool, said Tony. The buffalo is important to that effort, Uncle Roger explained. They've always taken care of our people. They gave us food, a hide for clothes and shelter, and bones to make utensils. Really? Asked Tony. Like what? Soup ladles, needles, and all kinds of tools, Annie answered. Annie loved history. Ask her anything about Ojibwe history, and she knew the answer. Tony thought history was boring. What was so important about something that happened a long time ago? Even the sinew, that's the tissue that connects muscles to bone, was dried and used as thread, Annie went on. Whoa, said Tony. He had to admit, that was pretty interesting. Every part of the buffalo was used, Uncle Roger said. Not many people practice these skills today, but with a herd on our lands, we can start to relearn them. As Annie and Uncle Roger talked, Tony watched the lake and trees of the Red Lake Reservation disappear behind them. The land turned to farmland with fields and cows behind fences. Why is the buffalo ranch so far away? Asked Tony. Both cousins lived on the shore of Red Lake, surrounded by trees. Uncle Roger described the prairies of South Dakota, where the buffalo were coming from. Buffalo need big spaces. They wouldn't be happy living crowded in trees. On the prairie, they'll have room to move around. Just then, they arrived at the Red Lake Buffalo Ranch. Look, shouted Annie as she jumped out of the pickup truck. She pointed at two buffalo standing in a field surrounded by a fence. Wow, said Tony, looking in awe at the buffalo. They were a lot bigger than he thought they'd be. They're the size of a car. Will that fence hold them? He asked. Uncle Roger nodded. Don't lean so far over the gate, though, Uncle Roger warned. You don't want to fall in and get chased by one. Tony laughed. I could run faster than them, he said. They're so big and heavy. Buffalo can run up to 35 miles an hour, said Annie. Can you run that fast? Whoa, said Tony. He shook his head no. This effort isn't just about food, you know, said Uncle Roger. It's a way to reconnect to our heritage. It'll help us make our cultural and historic connections to the land strong again. As a tribe, we'll learn how to care for the buffalo and how the buffalo care for us. The three of them leaned on the fence as they admired the animals. History still wasn't his favorite subject, but Tony was starting to understand Annie's excitement. Can we come see them again tomorrow? He asked. Uncle Roger smiled and nodded. Buffalo are cow-like animals sacred to native peoples of the Great Plains. The species is known as the American bison, but they are commonly called buffalo in North America. Giant herds of buffalo once roamed the plains. In the 1800s, however, the U.S. government told settlers and soldiers to kill buffalo. They wanted to force native peoples to give up their ways of life. The number of buffalo dropped from tens of millions to a few hundred by the end of the 1800s. The Red Lake Nation, a band of Plains Ojibwe people in northwestern Minnesota, started the Red Lake Buffalo Ranch in 2019. Red Lake Nation is one of more than 65 Native nations that belong to the Intertribal Buffalo Council, ITBC. The ITBC is working to restore buffalo populations on tribal lands. Since 1991, it has grown the buffalo population on tribal land to more than 20,000. Connections. Writing. Research to learn more about the Red Lake Buffalo Ranch. Write an essay explaining who started the ranch and why, and how it supports Ojibwe people. Social studies. Choose an organization in your community that helps provide people with locally grown food. Create a presentation about the organization and share with the class.
Okay, now let's read.
Good job.
Bringing Back the Buffalo. Bringing Back the Buffalo. Written by Matthias Randon. Illustrated by Alexander Jolistik. Focus question. How will raising a herd of buffalo affect Tony and his tribe?
Herd.
Hurry and get dressed, Tony's mom said from his bedroom doorway. Uncle Roger and Annie are waiting for you. Tony rolled out of bed. He put on his clothes and shoved his feet into his tennis shoes with a yawn. This
Shoved.
soft. Are you excited to see the buffalo? His mom asked. Tony shrugged. Sure, he said. Tony didn't really see what was so exciting about the reservation getting a buffalo herd. His cousin Annie was way more excited about it than he was. Annie and Uncle Roger was waiting outside in Uncle Roger's pickup truck. Tony hopped in. As they rode along, Uncle Roger told Tony and Annie about the buffalo they was going to see. The Red Lake Tribal Council voted to raise a buffalo herd, he said. Some of the meat will be shared among the tribe. Some of it will be sold to the tribe can buy more buffalo. It's part of our tribe's larger effort to create food
Sovereignty.
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 To create food sovereignty for us. What does that mean? Asked Tony. It means we'll grow vegetables and raise animals locally, said Anis. That would be pretty cool, said Tony. The buffalo is important to that effort. Uncle Rosa explained. They've always taken care of our people. They gave us food, they high up clothes and shelter and bonds to make
Utensils.
utensils. Really? Asked Tony. Like what? Soup ladders, needles, and all kinds of tools, and he answers. And he loved history. He asked her anything about early history and she knew the answer. Tony thought history was boring. What is so important about something that happened a long time ago? Even the seal, that's the tissue that connects muscle to bone.
Muscles.
Muscle was dried and used as a thread, and he went on. Wow, said Tony. He had to admit that was pretty interesting. Every part of the buffalo was used, Uncle Rose said. Not many people practice these skills today, but with a herd on our lands, we can start to relearn them. As Annie and Uncle Roger talked, Tony watched the lake and trees of the Red Lake Reservation disappear behind them. The land turned to farmland with fields and cows behind fences. Why is the buffalo ranch so far away?
Ranch
So far away, asked Tony. Both cousins live on the shore of the Red Lake, surrounded by the trees. Uncle Roser describes the prairies of South Dakota, where the buffalo were coming from. Buffalo need big spaces. They would be happy living crowded in trees. On the prairie, they will have room to move around. Just then they arrived at the Red Lake Buffalo Ranch. Look, shouted Annie, and she jumped out of the pickup truck. She pointed at two buffaloes standing in the field surrounded by a fence. Wow, said Tony, looking in awe at the buffalo. They was a lot bigger than he thought they would be. They're the size of a car. Will that fence hold them? He asked. Uncle Roger nodded. Don't lean so far over the gate, thought Uncle Roger warned. You don't want to fall in and get chased by one. Tony laughed. I could run faster than them, he said. They are so big and heavy. Buffalo can run up to 35 miles an hour, said Alice. Can you run that fast? Wow, said Tony. He shook his head no. This effort isn't just about food, you know, said Uncle Roger. It's a way to reconnect to our heritage. It will help us to make our cultural and historic connection to the land strong again. As a tribe, we'll learn how to care for the buffalo and how the buffalo care for us. The three of them leaned on the fence as they admired the animals. History still wasn't his favorite subject, but Tony was starting to understand Annie's excitement. Can we come see them again tomorrow? He asked. Uncle Roger smiled and nodded. Buffalo are cow-like animals scarce to native people of the Great Plains. The species is known as the American bison, but they are commonly called buffalo. In North America, giant herds of buffalo once roamed the plains. In the 1980s, In 1800s, however, the U.S. government told Sutter and Solider to kill buffalo. They wanted to force native people to give up their ways of life. The number of buffaloes dropped from tens of millions to a few hundreds by the end of the 1800s. The Red Lake Nation, a band of plains always OJIB people in the northwestern Minnesota started the Red Lake Buffalo Ranch in 2019. Red Lake Nation is one of the more than 65 native nations that belong to the Intertribal Buffalo Council (ITBC). So the ITBC is working to restore buffalo population on tribal lands since 1991. It has grown the buffalo population on tribal land to more than 20,000. Glossary: a culture of or relating to the belief, custom, language of arts or particular group of people. Herd: a group of large land animals, especially rough animals. Heritage: a way of life, tradition, or characteristic that is passed down from generation to generation. Reservation: land that the U.S. government once forced native people to live on. Food sovereignty: the right to produce or provide healthy, culturally appropriate food using environmentally friendly methods. Tribe: a group of people who share a culture and land. So, thank you for listening. I think it's enough time for us today. Hope to see you next time.
Good job.
Bye.